The attack in Manchester.
Breaking, Belfast just sent Britain a warning it can't ignore, and it did it in flames. 9:12 p.m. East Belfast. A roar so violent it stopped the city cold. The kind of sound that tells you the night just changed forever. Within seconds, phones were raised, alarms tripped, and a rumour tore through the streets like a spark across dry fuel. A secret migrant ship, sent by Starmer, arrived without warning. That's all it took. People poured out of terraced houses, pubs emptied, taxi drivers abandoned their cars mid-route. And by the time police realised what was happening, more than 1,600 people had surged toward the docks, not protesting, mobilising. Before we go further, if you want the full story on what really happened in Belfast and why this might just be the beginning, hit subscribe now, because what you're about to hear isn't just news, it's a warning. By 9:20, petrol bombs were airborne. The first one burst against a shipping container, sending flames climbing 10 metres high. Another smashed onto the tarmac near Sydenham Road, lighting the night in violent streaks of orange. 26 firebursts in under 10 minutes. The police service of Northern Ireland thought it was coordinated. It wasn't. It was fury. Raw, unfiltered, and unstoppable. Officers scrambled to form lines. 500 deployed across East Belfast. Riot shields raised. Helmets locked. But it wasn't enough. Roads crashed shut, one after another. Queensbridge, Sydenham Road, New Townards Road. The city was being sealed like a pressure cooker. Sirens ricocheted off the old shipyard walls, and Belfast, a city that buried its violence decades ago, felt something ancient rising again. This wasn't a riot, it was a siege. But to understand the explosion, you have to rewind 12 hours. It started at midday. The sun was high over East Belfast, casting long strips of light across a city that had spent decades trying to hold its fractured history together. Then a single rumour ignited everything. A claim that a secret migrant vessel had slipped through coastal checks overnight, pushed forward under a quiet directive supposedly linked to Starmer's latest asylum enforcement push. Within minutes, group chats across East Belfast were bursting. Voice notes, screenshots, shaky videos filmed through car windows, none of it verified, but all of it believed. Because in Belfast, perception is reality. And the perception was this: London had acted behind Belfast's back again. By 12:40 p.m, the streets around Sydenham Road began filling, some angry, some frightened, all convinced that something had been hidden from them. Then the flood truly arrived. Between 1,500 and 1,700 people surged toward the docks. Parents holding their children's hands. Dock workers in high-vis jackets. Loyalists and Republicans, groups that hadn't stood side by side in years, now moving as one. Not divided, unified in distrust. At 4:12 p.m, a video went viral. Shaky footage of men running along the East Dock fencing, shouting that a secret migrant vessel ordered by Starmer's directive was docking without oversight. 300,000 views in minutes. The city stopped watching. It started moving. Several eyewitnesses claimed they'd seen 3 unmarked vans heading into the restricted harbour zone. Dark, windowless, moving fast. That was the spark that convinced even the cautious. Something was unfolding behind closed gates. Inside the city's command centre, senior officers scrambled to understand whether any such vessel even existed. But clarity proved impossible. Phone lines mirrored the streets. Overwhelmed, chaotic, breathless. By 4:30 p.m, the tide hit Sydenham Road. Not water. People. The first clash erupted outside a checkpoint. A group of young men hurled bottles at an armoured Land Rover, shouting that London had turned Northern Ireland into a dumping ground for Starmer's failed asylum policy. Officers raised shields. But the crowd only widened, swallowing pavements, roundabouts and car parks with a force that felt tidal. Then at 4:47 p.m, the first petrol bomb arced through the air. A glass bottle spinning end over end, a rag stuffed in the neck, flames trailing behind it like a comet. It exploded against the pavement in a burst of orange and black smoke, then another and another. 26 petrol bombs ignited along Sydenham Road in under 10 minutes, painting the asphalt in flickering fire, heat-warped bus stop panels. Smoke rolled down the road like a living creature, triggering car alarms in a symphony of panic. One witness shouted into his phone, voice cracking, "This isn't a protest anymore, this is a siege." The PSNI called for reinforcements, 500 officers now deployed. Riot-trained units thundered in from Antrim and Londonderry. Armoured carriers crossed Queen's Bridge, engines growling like they were heading to war. But even that wasn't enough. At 5:02 p.m, the crowd breached a side gate leading toward the dock warehouses. A wave of people slammed into the PSNI line, shoving, striking, grabbing at shields. An officer stumbled and was dragged back into formation seconds before he would have been swallowed by the mob. Over the radio, a voice cracked through the static. "We are losing East. Repeat, we are losing East." Then came the moment that changed everything. A rumour, fast, wild, impossible to contain, tore through the crowd like electricity. "Starmer approved the ship and it's already here." It didn't matter whether it was true, it mattered that people believed it. The fury sharpened, dozens began dragging metal barriers from a nearby construction site, turning them into makeshift battering rams. They charged the PSNI's second line with a thunderous crash, shields jolted back. An officer fell. Two others yanked him up by his vest, stumbling under a barrage of kicks and thrown bricks. By 5:20 p.m, PSNI declared critical overload on Sydenham Road. 8 major roads were shut immediately. No traffic in, no traffic out. Belfast was being choked piece by piece. City Hall activated its emergency protocol. Workers erected steel barricades along the perimeter, while 2 armoured carriers took position at the main gate. For many residents, the sight was surreal. A wartime tableau unfolding at the heart of their city. The worst surge came at 5:37 p.m. A group of nearly 150 rioters rushed at once, smashing into shields with metal poles, trying to rip officers away from their positions. A concussion grenade went off too close to the crowd. The blast sent people stumbling, ears ringing, screams cutting through the smoke. A mother covering her son's face from the ash cried out, "This is madness! Belfast can't survive this again!" But the worst was yet to come. At 5:50 p.m, a PSNI drone spotted a mass movement from the east. Hundreds more approaching from the Titanic Quarter, pushing the estimated riot size close to 3,000 people. Belfast was truly encircled. The order finally came. Full city containment. Prepare for overnight siege. And with that, history repeated itself, not along old sectarian lines, but along a new one carved by fear, misinformation, and the shadow of Starmer's asylum directive. The city that once broke apart was breaking again. This time with no clear enemy, no clear truth, and no clear way out. By the time the smoke began to clear, Belfast wasn't just damaged. It was divided from London. Every flare, every shattered window, every overturned barrier carried the same accusation: Westminster forgot Belfast. Inside Stormont, ministers traded blame behind closed doors. One senior official muttered that Starmer's emergency directive had been reckless at best, provocative at worst. Another admitted that none of them had been warned about the scale of the crackdown order issued 2 days prior. The one residents now blamed for igniting the siege. Meanwhile, radio phone-ins flooded with callers demanding accountability. Some blamed the police, most blamed Starmer. A few simply whispered that if London kept pushing Northern Ireland into pressure cooker decisions, nights like this would not be rare, they would be inevitable. For a city long defined by its divides, the greatest shock wasn't the violence, it was the rare, chilling unity born from distrust. Loyalists and Republicans weren't shouting at each other anymore. They were shouting at London. Morning came slowly to Belfast. The barricades were cleared. The flames extinguished. But the city didn't feel relief. It felt suspended. Families stood behind cordons, staring at scorch marks on the pavement where petrol bombs had landed. A mother held her son close as he asked why the sirens didn't stop all night. She didn't answer because she couldn't. Above them, a lone helicopter circled once more before heading south, not searching for rioters anymore, watching for what might spark next. The PSNI's morning briefing used a single word: paused. Not solved, not settled, paused. Belfast didn't break because of a rumour. It broke because people felt unheard, unseen and cornered by policies made 400 miles away. The question isn't who threw the first petrol bomb, it's who lit the fuse. The protesters who believed the rumour, the misinformation that spread unchecked, the 500 exhausted officers stretched past their limit, or the government in London whose asylum directives keep igniting fires across the UK. And perhaps that's the final warning Belfast sends today. A nation cannot keep outrunning its own unrest. If Westminster does not listen now, the next flashpoint may not wait for nightfall. Because what happened in Belfast wasn't just a riot, it was a message. And the message is clear. When people feel abandoned by their government, they stop asking for answers. They start demanding them. In the streets, in flames, in fury. So here's my question for you. Who's really responsible for what happened in Belfast? Is it Starmer and his asylum directive, the rioters who believed the rumour, the police who couldn't contain the chaos, or the misinformation that set it all on fire? Drop your answer in the comments below. Let's see where you stand. And if you want to stay ahead of what happens next in Britain's unfolding crisis, because trust me, this story is far from over, hit that subscribe button now. Belfast just sent a warning. The question is, will Westminster listen?